Hello, Patricia, Mystic in the Matrix, and this is my next part of my alien conversation. As I was saying in my first video before this one, that I'm going to start talking about aliens because there's a lot about disclosure and things like that that's coming up. But I also quickly want to say that when I recorded the video, you can tell because I was wearing the same clothes as the video I just did, and if you look closely, like really in the very beginning of that video, you'll see something fly upwards beside me. Like it's like this little orby energy that goes up. And I noticed it when I was reviewing. I went, oh my God, that's really interesting, especially when you see what happens after that with my dog interrupting me and everything. But Moo's nicely sleeping on the couch right now, so I don't think we're going to be interrupted by her at this moment. All right, so let's continue with my experiences and where I combine kind of like that paranormal world with the alien world. And as I said before, I have been an alien enthusiast for 50 years. It started when I was a kid. My father used to point to the sky and show me spaceships that were up there, you know, it could have been stars, could have been this, could have been that, but they were unexplainable at that time. And we also didn't have back then, I should mention to you too, I didn't mention this in the first video, but that time frame would have been in the 1970s, okay? So yeah, maybe I did mention it, I'm not sure. But it would have been in the 1970s. So there wasn't like all these satellites and things like that hanging around in the sky at that point. We didn't have all the space garbage that we have now and those freaking satellites and all of that. So at this point in time, there was nothing like that. And so the next thing I'm going to talk about is an experience I had in my early 20s. So it would have been in, do I have it written down here anywhere? In the 80s. This would have been, yeah, the mid 80s. And at that time, we did not have cell phones. We did not have computers. Computers were just starting to come through. We were learning about them in high school, but it wasn't like there was no internet or anything like that. And in workplaces too, instead of like putting the price tags on individual items, there was now barcodes and you could scan the barcodes. That's where computers were at this point in time in my story. So I was living in Toronto, downtown Spadina and Bloor area, and I was living in a apartment building that I like to lovingly call the stairway to hell because there was just so much happened in this building. And I'm not going to say the location of it because I have to be responsible. I don't want to freak people out. If anyone watches it who lives there, you know, like, I don't know, I could be held accountable for saying things. Sorry, I'm getting more comfortable. For saying things that I, you know, might get in trouble for. I don't know how this works. I've never been sued like that before, but I just feel the need to be responsible and to not start a panic in this location of where it is. So, but it is in that downtown region of Toronto. And there was a lot of things that happened there that were paranormal, ghosts, just, it was freaky. It was really crazy. And that's where my dream time started, like really vivid dream time. And now I know, yeah, I'm gonna say now I know what this was more about. So I have never considered myself a remote viewer. It's just not something in all my years that I thought about that I was able to do. I didn't do astral traveling because I had a good friend who was an astral traveler back at that time, and she really, you know, gave me a heads up of, you know, you got to be really careful when you're doing things like that, because those dimensions, those fields that people get into, you know, when you leave your body and you're on that silver cord and stuff, there's a lot of stuff that can come at you. And I kind of felt like, you know, there's enough in the living world. What the heck would I want to be going places in an astral level and have other things coming at me? So I really avoided all of that throughout my life. I just kind of figured, you know, when I leave this body, I'm going places anyway, so I'll get there when I get there, and I'm just going to stay here and have my human experience. So I didn't get into astral traveling and things. And so, but having said that, it's been quite recently that I've come to understand some of my experiences that I was having, which started there, was actually remote viewing. And like I said, I've never considered myself a remote viewer, because it's not like I've thought, oh, I'm going to go search this, or I'm going to go and see what these people are doing or whatever. Any of my remote viewing has actually been involuntary. I find myself, it happens in dream time. And dream time, I also believe, is also sometimes like, I think dream time can be many things, but one of them I think is thunder. One thing I think it can be is dimensional travel as well. Sometimes it's still on earthly realm, sometimes it's just in different places. I'm not sure, I'm not an expert at it, so I don't want to really say, oh, this is what it is, when I'm not sure. I can only share what my personal experiences are, and then try to kind of like navigate what they mean and where they're coming from. So when I was living in this building, amongst supernatural crazy stuff that used to happen there, I had 2 times, which I'm going to call remote viewing because there's no other explanation for it, and it was in my dream time. So, and still to this day, okay, so I'm 60 years old now. This would have been like when I was 20, I'd say about 21 years old. So that would have been like around 1981, 82-ish that this, I think, started. Maybe it was a little bit later. I'm not sure. Anyways, during that time frame, I should have been more prepared for that one before I got on here. But anyways, it is what it is. So I'm going to read from my book here, because I did record it in here. So I can vividly still remember these things. Like, it's kind of crazy how that, like after all those years, I still can put it in front of me in my mind's eye and visualize and see it. But I think I'm just going to read it from here today. Dream 1. I called them dreams then. I found myself in a cave with someone that I understood to be a guide. The guide felt masculine to me. I have no recall of the guide's face, just a voice and knowing he was always close to me physically. He wanted me to see something of great importance. We were walking along the passage of rock. So, yeah, I'm not sure if I completely described it perfectly in here. I'll continue. We were walking along the passage of rock. It was dark and cold. There were openings in the rock where we could look down into a huge area where there were activities going on. To this day, I do not know what I saw. I only know that I was quite upset from whatever I was looking at. And I clearly remember my guide telling me to keep my voice down, because if one of the guards caught me, they would kill me. And I knew that the guards were not human. And I was puzzled how I could be killed in dream time. This was a thought that I never let go of. In that time frame, I had never heard of underground bases like we do today. Had I actually gone to an underground base during dream time with a spirit guide? And who were these non-human? Now, one of the things I vividly remember, like the coldness, and I remember these walls, and it was kind of like cavern rounded entranceways, and we were kind of like, I remember holding on to it and feeling this rock, and it was bumpy, and seeing something, and I really don't recall what I saw, but I remember it just being so intimidating. And for my guide to say, you have to be careful, they can't hear us, they'll kill you. And just that idea of, how can I die in dream time? So that was the first one that I had. Dream 2. I found myself on the side of a highway with the same guide that I had had in the dream of the cave. It was dark outside and there was no traffic on the highway. The highway was somewhere in the countryside. We left the highway and walked along the grass to a tree line. There were 3... Oh my God. Do you hear that thunder? I don't know if you can hear it, but that's crazy when I'm telling this story. Alrighty. There were 3 forms cloaked in light gray capes. one came over to us, and I could see it was a man. He was irritated and questioned my guide as to why he brought me here. My guide replied that he thought it was important for me to see what was happening. The cloaked man insisted that he did not want the Greys to see me, and that we needed to hurry away before they arrived. I woke up. In that time frame, I had never heard of the Greys like we do today. Some people may feel that my descriptions seem a little vague or not a lot of detail in them. The reason for this is because this chapter is not easy for me to write. I personally would not even rather talk about this stuff, but since I have been guided to be completely authentic, I will do my best to recapture any of the events I have experienced. So I remember it would have been in 2006 when I first got my computer. And at that time, one of the first things I did when I got my computer was I went and I started researching, because I remembered the word the Greys. And I went and I researched it. And I started crying, actually, when I researched it. And I saw these things coming up about who the Greys were. And I, immediately one of my thoughts was, oh my God, this is valid. Those dreams were valid. There's underground bases. There's these things called the Greys. And yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot to absorb and to undertake all of that. So now, yeah, I look at those as not just dream time, but I actually went places. And there's not a lot of detail because I was rushed. I was zipped right out of that meeting that they were having. But the one thing I did understand was that the Greys are not our friends. There's been a battle going on planet Earth for a long time. And, that's just the beginning of my experiences with it. Now, after that, all right, so let's go flip to 1992-ish, around there. 92, 93, 93, when I moved to Banff, Alberta. I was on my way to go to BC. I took a bus and I got off in Banff, and I remember waking up in the morning and seeing the mountains around me and went, oh my God, I'm home. This place is beautiful. And it just, my heart sang, it's just, sometimes you're in a place where you just really resonate with. And it's also the place where this whole alien thing started to really come up in my life. Now, in Banff, people come and go all the time. There are the locals, you get to know locals, but there's a lot of people who drift through the town, and, they come and they go. I personally stayed there for 6 years, and yeah, I was there for 6 years, loved it, didn't want to leave, but circumstances kind of dragged me away. But anyhow, one of the things that I noticed when I was living in Banff was how many people would bring up the conversation to me of being abductees. How many people would talk to me about being an abductee? And at that time in my life, I never ever considered that. I never considered I was an abductee. I just, like I said, my experiences at that time, and there's still no cell phones and no computers at this time, okay? So 93-ish, I still had no access to things like that. So I used to have all these people talking about being abducted, and they would talk about their symptoms. And there's this one guy, I had dated him, and I'm not going to say names or anything because this is my story, and I don't want to, bring attention to different people. But one of my experiences was this young man at the time. I was in my mid-20s, going into my later 20s, I guess. And he would talk about how he would wake up in the morning and throw up things that he never ate. And I thought, okay, dude, that's kind of crazy, but then one time he did. I was there. I experienced him doing that, and I'm thinking, though, how the heck can this happen to you? Like, we slept in the same room. Nothing happened to me. How would you possibly have an alien abduction, wake up in the morning feeling like shit, and then throw up things that you never ate? I thought that was a really bizarre experience, but he wasn't the only one. Like I said, I had a lot of people coming up to me when I lived there and wanting to talk to me about being abductees. And I mean, you know, I was into it. I listened to their stories, and I couldn't really share anything back to them, but I listened, and I thought, okay, I gotcha. You need someone to talk to, cool. I'm gonna listen. There was one other person that I experienced a really bizarre thing. And this person was talking to me about how he had, in his dream time, had an incredibly terrifying experience with a reptilian. And this was kind of like my first time hearing about the reptilians then as well. And he told me how he was being hunted down in his dream by one, and that he actually jumped out of dream time because he was staying in a motel, jumped out of dream time and got the hell out of there and just like got into his vehicle and left. But then I experienced something crazy with this person. We had got to know this guy. And there was one time we were, at his apartment, and we were talking and stuff, and he was acting kind of weird. And I was looking at him, and all of a sudden, like, seriously, it was kind of like that, where he morphed, like his face kind of morphed. And I'm like, what did I just see? But I said nothing. Of course I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to say, hey, dude, did you just fucking morph? Like it was weird. It was a really weird thing. And reptilian? Maybe? I'm not really sure what I saw. But I saw a human morph. And just saying, that person became a very negative influence in my life. Glad they're gone. Now, when I moved to Edmonton years later, and I was a single mom with my kids, I started having really weird things happen to me. I started having bizarre experiences. I started waking up with marks on my body. The first time I recognized it for what it was like these marks, like on the back of my, like on my hip, I guess, but on my back, like where your hip would be. So kind of like in that place where you try to look yourself and you can't see, like it's a mark you just can't see. And it started off with these two marks, like dot beside each other, like a spider bite. I thought it was a spider bite. And I thought, ew, spider bite, because it was a little bit itchy, and I looked in the mirror and I saw it. And then, I don't know, like a week later, I'm in my room, I'm looking to see, and there's right underneath it is another two of these marks. And I'm like, what the hell? About a week later, I look again, because I'm keeping tracks of this now. Two more underneath that. And I actually have a photograph of it. And I actually have been to a skin doctor, to a specialist, just to see, like, but that became later because there was something else that happened. I'll get to that. So anyway, so there's three of these little dot marks. And I knew at that moment, there's no way in hell that a spider is going to keep coming back and go boop, boop, boop in a perfect alignment of these three dots. And we moved. It was at that time when I was leaving anyways, and we moved. So there was that. A few years after that, when we lived in a house. Oh, that's when I started sharing my stories, started talking about alien things, like, so it would have been like 2006, between 2006 and 2008, I guess it was. There was this other incident that happened. So this would have been around 2008. I started hearing at night doorbells, and I had a dog, but it'd be like this boom, boom, and I'd jump up out of my sleep. My dog would be fine, not moving, but I still jumped out of my bed and ran upstairs to go to the main door to see if there's anybody around, and there wasn't. And this happened so many times. I didn't even count how many times this would happen, that I would hear this doorbell, bing, boom, kind of thing, and I would just whoosh, jump up. Later, I started to realize that this was a sound I would hear before I started experiencing things. And so I had to, my theory, don't know for sure. If any of you out there have had these experiences, please comment and share your experiences here too, or your ideas of what certain things can be. I think these things are things that need to be collaborated and discussed amongst other humans, so that we can all, it's when you put your minds together and you start to see a bigger picture. But anyhow, so that was happening. And there was one thing really strongly in particular that happened. Again, the whole doorbell thing would go off. But I woke up and I sat up, and I had a boyfriend at that time, and he was lying beside me, and my dog was lying on the bed, and I woke up, and I remember the side of my left breast was really sore. And I was like, oh my God, that really hurts. And in my mind, I thought, this is interesting. In my mind, I remember saying to myself, it's okay. This always happens when I come back. When I wake up, I'm not going to feel it. I won't even remember it. So just go back to sleep. I'll forget, and I won't even know. Boom, I go to sleep. So I wake up in the morning, and getting dressed, whatever, and my boyfriend, he looks at my side there, and he goes, what's that on the side of your breast? And I look down, and it's this, it would be, okay, you can see about this this big of a mark, perfectly round, incredibly smooth. It looked like a suction cup had been on there, like a burn that has been healed already. That's the best I can describe it, on the side of me. And as soon as he said that, and as soon as I looked at it, I remembered waking up, holding the side of me and saying, oh my God, that really hurts. But they do this every time, and it's okay, because I'm going to forget about it in the morning. Yeah, that was something. So I was incredibly freaked out. And so I went to a specialist doctor, a dermatologist, and had them look at the mark on my breast, this round, perfect circular, smooth skin, and also to have a peek at my back of my hip, those 3 incision marks. And basically what the dermatologist says to me is, oh, that must be ringworm on the side of you. And so she tried to scrape to get a sample. And as she did that, it hurt. It bled a little bit. And I will tell you, ringworm is scaly. It's not smooth like this. It doesn't look like a burn mark that's been healed. And she had no idea what the marks were on my back hip area. No idea what to tell me. And so at that point, I was terrified. I was terrified because I'm like, how do I protect my family? Like, what's going on here? Like, this is crazy. I was scared. I was really scared. And so one more experience after that, because I'm looking at the clock here, we're at 25. Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to save my next story that really kind of jarred me forward to, I blocked all of this off. Like, I just went, I'm done talking to people about this shit. So I'm going to tell you in my part 3, because this is part 2 right now. And I'll give you a little bit more information on something really crazy that happened that I was just like, fuck this. I'm not ready for this stuff. Anyways, peace out. I'll see you in the 3rd one. I'm going to end this now.